Amy Bishop grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts with her parents and her younger brother Seth. The two children had a stable and loving upbringing and were close as young siblings with similar interests in music and science. All of this changed on a morning in December 1986. Bishop was 21 years old at the time. A year prior, the house had been broken into and jewelry was stolen. Due to this incident, Bishop's father purchased a 12-gauge shotgun to be kept unloaded in his bedroom closet. On December 6th, Amy's mother, Judy Bishop, left early to care for her horse in a nearby town. She returned to the house around 2 p.m. In a statement to police, she claimed that she was with Seth in the kitchen making lunch when Amy came down the stairs with the shotgun in her hands. Bishop said that she could not load the gun and asked Seth if he could help her. As Bishop moved the gun around, the gun went off and fired 2 shots into Seth's chest. He was only 18 at the time. As he fell to the ground, Bishop fled from the house. Police found Bishop outside of an auto dealership where she had demanded the use of a car from terrified mechanics. Bishop refused to lay down the gun when police demanded and only complied when a police officer crept up behind her. Down at the police station, Bishop said that she had been alone in the house and became anxious thinking about the break-in the year before. She'd gone to her parents' bedroom, grabbed the gun, and loaded it how Seth had shown her before. She tried to unload the gun after, and when she removed the shells, the gun had gone off upstairs and shattered a mirror in her bedroom. She then heard her mother and brother downstairs and decided to take the gun downstairs to ask Seth how to unload it properly. She did not mean to shoot her brother. Seth did not survive the shooting, and Bishop was later released into her family's custody. The local coroner ruled the death an accident, and 11 days later the police closed the file. They too had determined that Seth's death was the result of an accidental firing of a firearm. The family continued to live in the same house after the shooting. Bishop did not undergo any sort of counseling or therapy to speak about the shooting or to address the guilt she felt in her brother's death. In response, Bishop threw herself into her studies. She was an intelligent and educated woman with no criminal record and seemingly no mental health problems. She completed her undergraduate degree at Northeastern University in Boston. Her father, Samuel Bishop, was a professor in the art department. During this time, Bishop married James Anderson and eventually had 4 children together. She went on to earn her PhD in genetics from Harvard University. While at Harvard, Bishop's 1993 dissertation was titled "The Role of Methoxytin, PDQ, in the Respiratory Bursts of Phagocytes." An anonymous source at Harvard stated that her work was of poor quality and undeserving of the doctoral degree. In 2003, Bishop joined the faculty of the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Alabama in Huntsville as an assistant professor. Previously, she was an instructor at Harvard Medical School. Working with her husband, they created the Portable Cell Incubator and came in third in a technology competition. The lab that Anderson was employed at raised $1.25 million to develop this cell incubator. Aside from research, Bishop had written 3 unpublished novels. One story was centered on a female scientist working to defeat a pandemic virus while also struggling with suicidal thoughts at the threat of not getting tenure. She was a member of the Hamilton's Writers Group while living in Massachusetts in the late 1990s and was said to think that her writing would be her way out of academia. Members of the club said she would frequently cite her Harvard degree to boost her credentials as a serious writer. Another member remembered Bishop as smart but abrasive in her interactions with others and as feeling entitled to praise. Several of her coworkers had expressed concern over Bishop's behavior. She would interrupt meetings with bizarre tangents. She was seen as being strange or crazy. One of the coworkers describing her behavior was also a member of her tenure review committee. When it came to her tenure, she was denied, and then learned that that colleague referred to her as crazy. She filed a complaint with the EEOC alleging sex discrimination. When that colleague was questioned, he did not backtrack on his comments. He stated, "I said she was crazy multiple times, and I stand by that. This woman has a pattern of erratic behavior. She did things that weren't normal. She was out of touch with reality." Not helping her point of view, Bishop was reported to be a poor instructor and unpopular among her students. When her lab students weren't seeking transfers out, she would dismiss them from the lab. In 2009, several students went to the administrators numerous times to complain about Bishop. They said that she was ineffective in the classroom and had odd, unsettling ways. A petition was then signed by dozens of students and sent to the department head, but nothing changed. After Bishop was denied tenure in March 2009, she knew that her teaching contract would not be renewed after March 2010. Upon receiving the news, she appealed the decision to the university administration. Without reviewing the content included in the tenure application, the university determined that the process was carried out correctly and denied her appeal. Bishop's husband said that this denial of tenure had been an ongoing issue in recent months, and described it as a long, hard fight. He was under the impression that she exceeded the qualifications for tenure. Bishop was very distressed from this denial of tenure and hired a lawyer who unearthed numerous problems with the process. One point of the dispute was whether 2 of her papers were published in time to be included in the tenure application. Her issue was that she would seek out patents rather than publishing more papers, and continuously received warnings to publish more for tenure status. On February 12, 2010, Bishop arrived at the university and taught her anatomy and neuroscience classes. A student later claimed that Bishop seemed perfectly normal during the lectures. After the classes were over, Bishop attended a biology department faculty meeting on the 3rd floor of the Shelby Center for Science and Technology. It was a typical faculty meeting with about 12 to 13 staff members in attendance. Bishop was described as being normal during the meeting. After sitting quietly for around 30 to 40 minutes of the meeting, Bishop suddenly got up, took a gun out of her purse, and started shooting at the faculty members. She shot the faculty in order of the one closest to her and went down the row, shooting the targets in the head. The faculty that was shot was on one side of the table, and the 5 on the other side dropped to the floor. After Bishop had fired several rounds, a biochemistry professor who was at the meeting stated that Bishop pointed the gun and pulled the trigger, but only heard a click. The professor figured that the gun either jammed or ran out of ammunition. Bishop initially appeared to be angry, but then perplexed by the weapon. The biochemistry professor attempted to stop Bishop by approaching her, asking her to stop, pushed Bishop from the room, and closed and blocked the door with the help of other survivors. Police soon arrived and found the suspected murder weapon, a 9mm Ruger P95 handgun, in the bathroom on the 2nd floor of the building. After Bishop realized the gun was no longer usable, she had gone to that bathroom, cleaned herself up, and threw the gun in a trash can. She then borrowed a cell phone from a student to call her husband and ask him to pick her up. As she left the building from a side door to wait for her husband, a sheriff's deputy approached and apprehended her. As she was being placed into the police car, she said, "It didn't happen. There's no way. There's no way. They're still alive." Bishop's husband was interviewed shortly after the shooting. He said that she had called him to come pick her up. On the Friday afternoon prior to the shooting, Bishop and her husband were seen leaving their house with duffel bags. Her husband said that his wife had borrowed the gun that was used in the shooting and that he had taken her to an indoor shooting range in the weeks prior. Police did not believe that he was involved and did not charge him in the shooting. After the shooting, the investigators were left with the question, why? Bishop's rejected tenure application in the previous year was the first motive considered. It was theorized that the rejection and failed appeals had created a deep anger in Bishop, pushing her to want to get revenge. On the day of the shooting, Bishop made no attempts to hide her actions. She did not try to mask her identity. She stood and looked her victims in the eyes before shooting them. When looking into Bishop's past, there were a few unsettling incidents even beyond the death of her brother. In 1993, Dr. Paul Rosenberg received 2 pipe bombs in the mail. Luckily, they did not detonate. Bishop was a postdoctoral research fellow with Dr. Rosenberg at the Boston's Children's Hospital at the time. She had resigned from her position with an unfavorable review from Dr. Rosenberg. Bishop and her husband were both questioned over the mail bombing, but no charges were ever brought. 9 years later, in 2002, Bishop found herself questioned again by police after an incident at the International House of Pancakes in Peabody, Massachusetts. On a visit there with her family, staff had told her that another family had taken the last children's booster seat. Bishop would not stand for that and went to the family's table and shouted at the mother. She screamed out that she was Dr. Amy Bishop and hit the mother in the head. She was arrested shortly after the incident, but like before, she was not charged with any crime. Following the shooting, Bishop was charged with 1 count of capital murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. The police confiscated her computer, her van, and a large binder with documents related to her tenure application. Bishop obtained an unnamed attorney and was held at the Madison County, Alabama jail without bail. At this point, according to Alabama law, Bishop was eligible for the death penalty or life in prison. On February 15th, during a closed-door hearing, the charges were read to Bishop and she was placed on suicide watch. Roy Miller, her court-appointed attorney, visited her in jail and she told him that she did not remember the shooting and recognized that she did have a loose grip on reality. In February of 2013, Bishop told a reporter that she was being treated for paranoid schizophrenia. Miller said he would be enlisting the help of numerous psychiatrists to examine Bishop. He did not know if Bishop was insane, but said she was very sorry for what she's done. On June 18, 2010, 2 days after she was indicted for the murder of her brother, as the case had been reopened in light of recent events, Bishop attempted suicide in the Huntsville jail. She survived and was treated in a local hospital before being returned back to jail. In November, 2 survivors of the shooting filed lawsuits against the couple to recover damages. In January 2011, the survivors' attorneys filed wrongful death lawsuits against Bishop, her husband, and the university. In September of that year, Bishop pled not guilty due to reason of insanity. In 2012, the spouse of one of the faculty members who had been killed wrote a letter to the judge presiding over the case, indicating that although the family had suffered great loss, there was no benefit in the loss of another life, referencing the death penalty for Bishop. Bishop's lawyers then offered to change her plea to guilty if they could avoid the death penalty. The 9 survivors of the shooting also shared sentiments that they did not agree with the death penalty. Due to these opinions, the chief prosecutor on the case decided not to seek the death penalty, and Bishop subsequently changed her plea to guilty. On September 24, 2012, Bishop was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although she waived her right to appeal, she did indeed file an appeal on February 11, 2013. The appeal claimed that she was not informed of the rights she would be waiving by pleading guilty. She also claimed she was not informed of the minimum range of punishment and that the circuit court did not explain that she could withdraw her plea. On April 26, 2013, the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama rejected the appeal and stated that Bishop failed to challenge the validity of her guilty plea and did not file a motion to withdraw her plea or a motion for a new trial. She is currently serving out her sentence at the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more criminal connections.